We identified 9 financiers of candidates and political parties funding to them who were allegedly engaged in illicit activities and funneling the money back.
We have details of a CDD report plus revelations that it now cost about $100 million to run a presidential campaign and 4 million CDs for parliamentary primaries.
So the 4 million and the 100 million, I cannot authoritatively state.
Because nobody comes to offer funding and tells you that I'm engaged in human sacrifice or anything.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone and also by Prime Insurance. And they, of course, bring you a Top Story, Prime Insurance. Rest assured, you are insured. Now, it has emerged tonight that individuals involved in serious and organized crime spent millions of dollars financing the NDC and the MPP presidential campaigns. A stark reality that has today been confirmed through data and interviews. At least 9 persons alleged to be engaged in illicit activities, including fraud and galamsey, doled out millions of CDs. And of course, and if you look at the presidential race, $100 million it is estimated in support of the electoral bid of politicians in anticipation of receiving juicy contracts once their favorite candidates indeed win the elections. This is all coming to light now on the back of a CDD survey. The findings were released today that put the cost of running a good presidential campaign at a minimum of $100 million. And we're also learning that indeed if you really want to win a parliamentary primary, you are expected to spend an average of 4 million CDs now. Let's get into the details now. My colleague Ernest Menu has a copy of the details that's being put out now by the CDD, and he joins me in the studio. Let's start with the controversial bit. This revelation, I mean, it's been speculated all along, but CDD is now confirming with the research that they've done across the country. The financiers involved in organized crime who are deliberately targeting the political parties and funding them heavily.
Indeed, Evans. And CDD found 9 of them. And these are some of the illegal activities they claim that these financiers are involved in. So these financiers are engaged in illicit activities, which include activities of serious and organized crime. There's also illegal mining or galamsey. Then, Evans, there's the illegal oil distribution. That is one of the activities you find these financiers engaged in. Then you have fraudulent business procurement infractions and the associated kickbacks from the award of contract. So these are some of the major fraudulent activities that this report found 9 financiers engaged in, and that was the source of money for which they gave to the political parties to fund their campaign.
Now, if you listen to the researcher, Mr. William Nyako, who made the presentation, his conclusion was that, and based on the work that they have done, these individuals deliberately do this because they want favors in return.
The third as key assumption was that some of them may be engaged in illicit activities, and so they would fund campaigns so that they would get protection. And we found that for the genuine financiers, that is people who are just in the business, it's a business, they give you money, they get it back from you. Many of it, you would find that when you go to the contracts that are given out after an election, sole sourcing, you track it, and then you connect the dots and see that, oh, this was a campaign financier.
So that's William Nyako there, detailing the motive that is influencing this heavy pumping of money into the campaigns of both political parties by people engaged in organized crime. But then they also give us a sense of how much it's now costing the candidates to run for president, but also at the parliamentary level. We've had $4 million on the average.
Yeah.
And they had done some research in the past
Yeah.
that showed us that this is a significant jump.
And Evans, this is for the primary. So you had 4 million on the average for presidential primaries. Now, for running for MP at the primaries level, at the party level, they have a figure of $85,000, and this is from the previous figure was 389,803 or $85, and so there's a certain jump in the figure.
So in 2018, when CDD first did this research, it cost $85,000 or 389,000 CDs,
yeah,
to run a primary.
Exactly.
Today, we are now talking about 4 million.
4 million,
From
exactly.
300,000 CDs to 4 million.
And this is just other primaries.
In what, 3 years?
Yeah.
Because this is 2018.
2018.
So in 3 years, the jump is just astronomical.
And this is just at the primary level, Evans. We need to emphasize that.
Yeah. This is a primary.
This is just
so you
primaries.
haven't even gone to the.
Exactly. So
Okay.
that's what you spend at the party level. Now, running for president will cost you $100 million. And there's a quote here because they did some validation with some of the political parties and the politicians. And there's a quote in the report. It says, for presidential elections, if you don't have $100 million, don't come. The viability of candidature is dependent on how much you are able to raise, unquote. And of course, I mentioned that there's some validation work that they did with the political parties. But Evans, the report also states that they need to do some further research to itemize the costs
In other words,
associated.
this 100 million, what exactly are they using
Are they
that money
using it
for?
for? And then there's the gender dynamics as well, how the women are able to raise monies to fund their campaign. There's some work that needs to be done.
But
in
also
that.
interesting, and it's just, so why is it so costly now? It appears that there's a demand-supply tussle that is going on there that may be driving up the cost of
That
campaigning.
is so per the report. The report says there's a demand-driven corruption, and this is from delegates or citizens. So delegates are the primaries, citizens when you come to the national elections, and the expectation of candidates to provide for their personal needs, public goods, and candidates who are the biggest spenders invariably succeed in winning the elections. So elected officials start their role in office financially indebted and vulnerable in some ways. And so, Evans, there's a demand, and politicians are forced to meet that demand.
I mean, so did this research target all the political parties?
It mainly looked at the NPP and the NDC. And so there are three aspects of the research. There was one that looked at desk research, literature, then the second part, field work, exploratory, and this is where they focused on the NDC and the NPP between 2000 and 2016. And there were 4 regions in focus: the Greater Accra, the Eastern, the Ashanti, and the Western region. They had 40 informants, party insiders, private sector field people speaking to them. And there were follow-up interviews with 12 campaign financiers identified for the study between January 16 and February 28, 2021. And of course, the validation of the findings with some of these very important people.
I see. Ernest, thank you very much. We'll be getting some reactions from leading figures in both the NDC and the NPP, since they were the focus of this. At this event was Peter McMahon, who, of course, headed the campaign, the NPP's campaign in the 2020 elections. He says, there's a real justification for how expensive the campaigns have become, because everything else is expensive now, and you can't really expect that they'll spend less than it's been predicted.
Today, as I even stand here, there are about 7 of you and about 10 radio stations. And it costs money to do that. So the intensity of campaigns through the medium of technology has widened, and it costs money to do that. Secondly, campaigns have changed. If you are doing a rally, you can imagine that the population in 1957 is different from a 32, 35 million population we have now. So more people will attend, and that will cost. I mean, the bottom line is our expenditure as a nation has increased at all levels, from personal to institutions to political parties. So the 4 million and the 100 million, I cannot authoritatively state, but I know that expenditures have run and there's the need to cut it down. There is the need, absolute need for that. And we can do that through some of the recommendations he has made. No, it's not something we are aware of, but I agree with him that we should strengthen the institutional framework of monitoring campaigns. For example, he said something about who paid the money, what was it used for. All these things must come out in the returns that we submit to the Electoral Commission. So we need to deepen the conversation with the Electoral Commission on campaign funding. I think now it's light, so we should deepen it so that all the elements of the campaign expenditure are brought to bear to the larger public.
Well, so these two political parties took funds from individuals engaged in organized crime, as the CDD survey study has established. Did they actually, and as you just heard there, Peter McGuinness say, yeah, I mean, the campaign has become very expensive. The NDC's General Secretary also makes the point about, yeah, I mean, the campaigns are expensive, but the parties, do they bother to find the source of these funds they get for their campaigns at all? Well, my colleague, Joseph Akable, has been speaking to John Cecil Nketiah about these.
I cannot confirm or deny because I have never been a presidential candidate. And, you know, most of the campaign funding happen through the candidate himself, which is not declared in most cases to we the managers of the party. So the accounts we prepare, audit and submit to Electoral Commission, it can only take care of monies that have gone through my books as a as a chief executive of the political party. But beyond that, if a candidate is spending money on the field, he has no obligation to disclose all that to the leadership of the political party. So I agree with them when they talk about the non-disclosures relating to candidate, which is problematic because that is where the bulk of the money is spent. And so I will not be able to, I mean, talking about 4 million for parliamentary candidates, maybe in certain zones, certain communities, urban areas, not necessarily, even regions. It depends on the poverty profile of each region and how much it will cost to campaign there. So it will certainly not be any figure that is applicable to everywhere. In some cases, it will be lower than, far lower than what they are quoting. But whatever it is what we cannot dispute is that there is a rising cost of accessing electoral office in the country, which is very dangerous to our democracy.
You also talk about the fact that there are some 9 individuals, they say, who allegedly engage in illicit activities, who sponsored political parties in the 2020 polls. I mean, in terms of the funds that came to the party that you can speak of, is this something that the NDC, as CEO, you are aware of?
No, at least I haven't. I don't know whether I'll be able to actually say with some certainty, because nobody comes to offer funding and tells you that I'm engaged in human sacrifice or anything. You understand? The person may come and offer, and usually that is what they will be doing. It is only when you come to power that somebody will come and say that, well, this person, this business, help us with it and so on. So nobody will come and disclose that I kill human beings, or I'm a terrorist, so I'm coming to finance your party. Nobody will accept that type of funding. So it is the... I am saying that, but when they finance you, are they Father Christmas? They will be chasing your ministers when you come to power. And then they will refer that, well, do you know that we finance A, B, C? You understand?
So that's John Sasiru Nketiah there. So you had the two leaders of the two main political parties. They were at the helm when they ran the campaigns. But what about the parliamentarians? As you've heard tonight, that the cost of running a primary has moved from 300,000 cedis there, about just shy of 400,000 cedis, to 4 million cedis in the primaries. Some of the MPs have been reacting to this in Parliament. They say, yes, it's expensive, but they don't think it's as expensive as 4 million. ABF Husseini first.
Our politics, especially again in recent times, has been heavily monetized. If any honest person will talk to you about our political dispensation, you cannot run away from the fact that a lot of money is involved in our politics.
So did you use 4 million to campaign to win your election as Sagnarugu?
I can say without any doubt, iota of doubt, that I didn't even have anything close to that. And I could not even therefore have used that. Without running away from that, there was a minimum level of money that you need as a member of parliament. But fortunately for me, I had done a lot of good work for the good people of the Sadaro constituency, especially the depth of infrastructure.
But have you been approached by a financier in anticipation that you help him sustain his business when you win power or when you win the primaries or the election?
I personally haven't encountered financiers, so to speak, as money bags who are willing to throw money at you and tell you that you should win. No, but I do have people who are a little bit financially endowed, who see the work you are doing, who are prepared to lend you some support.
And there are no benefits? They don't expect anything from you?
I have not had any discussion where I'm supposed to agree at the table that this is what I can do for you. Because like I said,
the politician has friends. And there are people who believe in your leadership that may want to come and help you, print T-shirts for you, or even give you some support during your campaign and things like that. Sometimes from free heart, sometimes with the aim of establishing a kind of relationship that in future, when you are also in a position of influence, you may also be able to facilitate their business for them. That one, I think everyone understands that. But the kind of monies that they are talking about, that's the reason why I'm saying that it's possible, is that politics is expensive. And unfortunately, we have made it so. Over the years, there's an increasing monetization of politics.
So there you have it. They agree it's expensive, and they've made it so. But the research also talks about there's a demand for this. I want to bring in CDD's Dr. Kojo Asante, who's joining us on the telephone line right now. Dr. Asante, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Good evening.
I hear the members of parliament say, and in fact, even the two leaders of the party say, yeah, I mean, it's expected. I mean, what do we expect? It's expensive. Almost to say, it's okay. We need to do something about it, but until we do, this is the reality, and we just have to accept it and move on.
Yeah, the reason why this study was done is that we've come to a time where there are two things that we think are of real concern that really threatens our democratic stability and really can undermine our development. Well, it's already undermined our development outcomes, that we desire as a nation. So, for the first one, in terms of the rising cost, from election to election, the rise in cost is very, very high. 2012 to 2016 was 57% based on the 2018 study that we did, which was tracking the 2016 election and before that. And then from 2016 to 2020, we already seeing an astronomical jump in the cost of elections. And let me correct one thing. So this is talking about a 4 million. It's talking about any individual who wants to stand for a parliamentary seat. So the 4 million includes you nurturing your constituency, what they call nurturing your constituency. So often it would take a person maybe 2 years, 3 years, sort of courting leaders, supporting development projects, just so that they can build some credibility in the locality before you even come to the primaries and then to the actual contest. So that's what we mean by the 4 million. So almost half of that is really nurturing your constituency. And this is on the average. Depends on the size of the constituency, depending on, the kind of cost, the coverage of places you have to go. You see all that cost. The second part of it is the illicit part. Because of the rising cost and the monetization of politics, you are getting all kinds of people with very dubious sources of income coming into the party and sponsoring candidates who need the money to go and stand for elections. And that is where the danger is. And as you can see from the report, we took time to look at certain types of places where there are illicit activity like Galamsey, oil bunkering, and just general contract fraud and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, surprised to learn, I mean, when we spoke to Johnson Sodinkita, he makes the point that when the people bring the monies to them, they are not going to be disclosing to you that they are murderers. He said it jokingly, but it betrays the parties are simply interested in the money and not the source. Is that something that surprises you?
No, it doesn't surprise me. But the point is that is basically we are engaged in a risky behavior because now we are here talking about terrorism and extremism and so on. What if the person that comes to is somebody who is interested in destabilizing your country? You will not know. So it's just basically draw attention that this is a reality that everybody recognizes, and I know you were at the event. You realized that nobody really contested the findings. They didn't sort of challenge, some of the amounts that are there. Where they were talking about is, more research in terms of variations and so on. So I think the focus should be that we have a system that is basically generating very negative effects. And if we continue down this road, we will damage our democracy very badly. And we need to turn the corner very quickly. So I'm glad that for me, what I got from the event today was that a lot of people are committed to charting a different course. And we are ready to sort of drive that agenda forward.
This begs the question nonetheless. If CDD can establish that people engage in organized crime are sponsoring political parties, and the danger you've just illustrated quite eloquently, I'm a crime boss, my guy gets to the presidency, I mean, you begin to appreciate how dangerous that is. Should the police and our security agencies get interested in this now?
No, I mean, Alhaji Fusteni, Kanusa Fusteni mentioned, there are a number of laws against a lot of these illicit activities. We already have, a full military intervention on this Galamsey matter and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I expect those organizations to continue to do their job. But I mean, from our research perspective, we are grateful that those people were willing to even talk to us to give us an insight as to what is going on, because as society we need to know, even if these are offenders, that they share with you the kind of mechanisms and that they are using to pursue these activities, so that when we design rules and structures to deal with it, we will be informed by those insights. So I think from a research point of view, you have gone with a clear commitment to anonymity. You are not going to be telling the security agencies about those things. But the point is that you have gotten very rich insight, and it's a wake-up call to all of us that if we don't do something about this, we'll get to a point where the state will be completely captured.
I mean, you raised the point about... So what should we do now? The agencies are very obvious.
Yeah, I think we made it clear that for us, we're already putting together a small group because we want to do a draft roadmap. We think there's a window between now and maybe 2023 where we can look at some short-term measures to sort of begin to turn the corner. And we are going to push very hard to get, some actions taken along the side. I think we really need to take in all what is going on within the context of the sub-region and begin to correct some of these things before it gets out of hand.
And a quick comment about the Electoral Commission, because I see at the presentation that if you look at the law correctly, it gives the Electoral Commission the responsibility to be checking the books of the political parties. And I get a sense that that task, they haven't been up to it. Should we maintain the status quo?
Yeah, I mean, so there's been a debate as to whether the Electoral Commission has the capacity or it needs to build the capacity to actually undertake its regulatory, obligations. Because even in terms of the audited accounts, where everybody knows that it's almost empty. What the parties bring, as they were saying, little of the money that is spent goes through the party itself. So we need to look at the pros and cons of whether the Electoral Commission can, or you need to sort of hive it off. It's not an easy thing to regulate, I must say, campaign financing. So you really need some serious dedicated structure, to deal with that in order to also to promote fair competition. Because the only thing that will happen if one person does it, another person can find a way out, then it wouldn't work.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kojo Asante with the CDD there. What is your own take on this? Learning that your political leaders, those who won the elections, may have been financed by individuals within organized crime, individuals who make their money from crime. What's your reaction to that? I want to hear from you. 055-111-997.